The heat had a sound to it in the tunnels, a steady thrum like a beast purring in sleep. It filled ears and mouths and the hollows of ribs, made the air taste of iron and the stale sweetness of burnt stone. Men and women crawled where the rock permitted, stooped where it did not, and where even a stoop would not do they lay flat and wriggled along on chests and elbows until their nails bent back and their teeth filled with grit. If the mountain had a heart, it beat in these shafts. For the freehold called them the 14 flames, but those who swung the picks did not see fire. They saw the dark, and the dust, and the water that ran black as wine down the walls. Khaja had learned to breathe through a strip of cloth so the ash would not cake her tongue. She had learned to keep her hair wet and close to her scalp so sparks would not take it when the iron sang. She had learned, most of all, to swallow. There were words that did not help a body down here. Words about before, words about justice, words about the shape of the sky. So she had folded those words in on themselves. Into a single tight kernel she could palm like a pebble for comfort as she slept. It was near the end of the shift when Grimos broke. He was a big man, one of the ones they put at the face because he made the rock seem a lesser thing. His laughter filled the caverns on nights when the rum was passed, and he had a way of making the small ones feel taller by bending his great head to listen. He broke anyway, as rock breaks when a fissure has worked its way through it and some small knock finds the seam. No one saw it begin. His arm just slowed, and then he leaned forward against the cut and did not move. "Kez," said Akra the overseer, and when the overseer used her name the sound made Khaja's hands shake. She crawled to Grimos and pressed her knuckles to the corner of his jaw. The skin there shone with a sheen that was not sweat. She pushed her ear toward his mouth and could not find his breath for the mountain's purr. His eyes, when she lifted his lids as the healers had shown her, were full of fog. "Heat stroke," she said, and should not have said it, for naming a thing gave it weight. But Akra only nodded briefly, as if a thing named could be tallied. "Water," Akra said, "and move him from the face. We lose the cut, we lose the quota. You want to see what they do when we lose the quota." They all knew. Quotas were numbers imagined in cool chancels by men in pale stone. But down here, numbers made whips into knives. They dragged Grimos back from the cut. His lips worked as if he were speaking in dream. Khaja pressed the damp cloth to his mouth, let a drop fall, then another. The drops made tiny, obscene sounds on his tongue. His throat would not take them. He had broken somewhere Khaja's hands could not reach. A man's voice said, soft enough to be mistaken for a shifting of rock, "He asks for mercy." There were strangers in the tunnels every few weeks, inspectors with chalk on their fingers and no dust on their boots, dragon keepers with skin pale as milk from nesting in the shade of wings, clever men with rods that sang when they held them near the wall. This man was none of those. He had the boy's shoulders of a minstrel and the walk of someone who had learned not to be seen. No one looked at him until he spoke. That alone made Khaja wary. Silence is a kind of cloak, and cloaks belong to masters. "Mercy," Ikra spat black. "We give mercy to the quota when we make it dance." She knelt beside Grimos and slapped his cheek, not unkindly. "Breathe, ox. Do you hear? Breathe." When he did not, she straightened. The tunnel's air seemed to cling to her clothes and weigh them down. "Get him to the chamber. We will send a boy to the healer." They carried him. The chamber was a natural bubble in the rock like the inside of a stone's secret. The walls ran with a slow weeping. There were marks in the slime where fingers had gripped for comfort. Ikra stood against the entry's mouth so no one would see and begin to speak of weakness, which was a fever more catching than any heat sickness. "May I?" the stranger asked. "May you what?" Ikra said. Her hand had found the cudgel she kept at her belt. "May you look on a man? You have eyes." The stranger looked at Khaja, not as men looked at women here, but as if she had put her hand up in a crowd and asked to be counted. "You know this work," he said. "You know when a body has been emptied." Khaja looked back at Grimos. The fog in his eyes had taken on a pearly sheen that did not belong in this black. His chest rose, fell, did not rise again for too long. She had seen this several times. The healers could sometimes pull a drowning man from the unseen river and make his chest remember its trade. Down here, the river ran hot and the healer's hands were often late. She nodded once. The stranger's eyes did not change, but something in the planes of his cheek eased. Then you know that what is left is suffering, and the end of suffering is a prayer said in any tongue. He asks, and the god listens. Which god? Ikra said. There are many down here. There's. She angled her chin in the direction of the world above. The counting houses, the slender towers like needles of stone, the saddles built for dragons. And the one of boiling and groan who owns this place, and the little gods of each worker's poor body. Which answers? All of them, the stranger said simply. Each wears a different face. They agree on little, but on this they nod. He drew from his sleeve a tiny vial, no larger than the last joint of a little finger. He offered it to Khaja without looking away from Grimos. Khaja took it because it had been offered and because her hands had the memory of taking passed down for years and years. What is it? She asked, the words dry. The end, the stranger said, and there was no romance in it. A quick one, quicker than the ringing this heat will do. Quicker tea. Han the displeasure above. Quicker than the black water. Ikra looked at Khaja, and Khaja saw for the first time a seam in the overseer that might open one day. Ikra's mouth made a hard line. Do it, she said. Do it and put this behind the stones and wash your hands and do not carry it back to your bed and let it sit there and whisper. Khaja held Grimos's head and touched the vial to his cracked lips. His mouth opened because when you have been thirsty your whole life your mouth opens. And she tipped up the glass and watched the flat liquid vanish. Grimos sighed the way a man sighs when a load shifts on his shoulder and takes its proper place. The chest rose, fell, rose faint as a leaf stirring, fell without effort, and did not rise again. The mountain's purr continued. The black water crept down the walls. Ikra stepped aside and let the darkness in the tunnel swallow them all. After, when hands were cleaned and picks had been taken up and the cut had advanced a grudging inch, Khaja found the stranger again by the cistern. He sat with his back to the stone as if he trusted it. The light licked his face and could not decide whether to reveal or hide him. He was my friend, she told him, because if she did not set the words somewhere they would go up inside her and rattle. I know, the stranger said. You did not know his name. I didn't need to. The god knew. He studied her the way a smith studies a piece of metal to see what it might want to become. Do you think I took something from him that was his? No, Khaja said, surprised by the certainty in her voice. She had thought the words and found them true. But you took something from me. His leavings wait. I would have carried it. We all carry. It makes a shape of us. The stranger's mouth bent, not quite a smile. You are one who counts shapes, he said. Good. Names matter, but not more than that. Who are you? Khaja asked, and then, because this was a foolish question that would only earn a lie, she said, What should I call you while you stand where I can see you? No one, he said, and when she snorted at that, he added, It is not a riddle I make to vex you. It is work, and work has a costume. If you must bind sounds to me, call me the gift. He produced another vial. Khaja braced with a little flare of anger until she saw this glass held not the end but a pale blue water that smelled faintly of bitter almond and clean rain. Drink, he said. Not much. It keeps the head's heat at a civil measure. He paused. I am not a healer either, he added, which for some reason made her take it. The water tasted like winter stories. After the second swallow, she felt the seams of the mountain loosen and fit together again, and the sound of the heat dropped on her shoulders like a cloak instead of pushing her with fingers. You bring water and endings, Khaja said. We have both. What do you lack that you would take our rooms and our air and our sight of one another's faces? The man touched the wall with a bare hand, as if listening through his palm to the rock's slow speech. I lack hands, he said, and eyes that know the dark. I lack ears that can tell the mountain's change from its sameness. I lack the right to be here for long, all of which you have. He turned his hand over as if showing her the dust that clung to it. I came as a beggar. You gave. I will pay. Coin, Khaja said. She did not know what she would do with coin. The freehold counted wealth in names and wings and good seats at councils. In the tunnels, you hoarded other things. Not coin, the stranger said. A story, a long one. At its end, there will be no more overseers, and no more men standing with birds on their fists made of fire. At its end, there will be a word for work that is not another word for chain. Khaja thought of the tiled courtyards above where small fountains wept for show rather than thirst. She thought of dragons preening on sun-warmed stone, their shadows huge and perfect over the water. She could imagine the end of overseers. She could not imagine the end of dragons. Even a story had to eat something true to live. That is a long story, she said in her flat voice, and he nodded as if she had taught him something. You told me you carry, he said. Will you carry this? Not because you believe it. Because you believe me when I say I need it carried, and I will shoulder what weight I can. I will listen, Khaja said, which was the same as agreeing and not the same at all. He set the vial back into his sleeve. There is a God, he said, and his voice did not change when he said the word. Many. They are the one with 100,000 faces, each a way to say an ending is coming soon, or mercifully late, or exactly when it should. But there is also a knot in the world, tied by men who do not like endings, and they tend it with songs and blood and very careful numbers. That knot lies around these mountains. The knot keeps wings in the sky. The knot makes the land do as it is told. The knot is what lets the freehold pretend it has made a cage around the earth. Do you see? If a knot is pulled tight, there is a way to set one finger on it and it will loosen all at once in a strong breath. No one loosens a knot from the middle, Khaja said. You cut it, you break your nails on it, you spit on it and curse it, and when you die it is still a knot. You are proud, he said, even pleased. Good. Pride keeps the night from chewing the mind. I did not say I would try to unpick it with a needle. I said there is a way. There is always a way, Khaja said. We learn that too, and then it turns into a wall. He dipped his head and did not argue with her. Still, if the knot goes, the cage opens. If the cage opens, the masters fall. If the masters fall, who will feed the dragons? Khaja did not answer. The mountains thickened for a breath, then eased again. On other shifts, such little stutters had made her think. The world might shift in its sleep and crush them. Now the sound made the hair lift along her forearms. She did not know why. When? She asked, and the man smiled like a lantern guttering. It is a long story, he said again. In the freehold's heart, where the towers wore skins of black stone polished to a knight's mirror sheen, Marin Belleris put down his stylus and flexed the last 2 fingers of his right hand until the cramp in them unwound. Light fell through the lattice into a pool on the table. His sister's dragon had passed overhead at afternoon, and he had paused to look because the shadow a dragon cast became a different sky for a heartbeat. He could not help it. Even those who did not ride felt something when the world wore a dragon across its face. You are still sulking, said Serena, from the doorway where she leaned like a cat deciding whether to spoil a vase. I am practicing letters, Marin said mildly. He lifted the sheet and waved it as if to cool it. The ink shimmered like the backs of beetles. See? These two speak to each other like an old couple at market. These two do not yet know they share a bed. Serena pushed a lock of pale hair behind one ear and came to look, more from affection than interest. She did not read the way Marin read. The letters nodded to him and told secrets when he was patient, and patience was a coin Serena spent on the wind when she could. Up in the Aries, the steel harnesses sang and the dragons turned their heads and their eyes were wells you could lean over and see your own face. Small, small. Why would a woman sit and ask black lines to make a world when she could go out and touch the wind? The singers in the hills write their vows without ink, she said. They cut them into their skin. That way they cannot ever forget them. If you had your letters carved into you, they would not complain about who sleeps with whom. They would heal crooked and say uglier things. Marin smiled because he had learned that laughter kept Serena near. He had not broken ribs falling off a dragon in boyhood, she had. He had not scalded his hands on hot leather and raw iron, she had. The freehold's thinner blood had settled in him. The part that counted and measured and made sure water ran into the right bowls at the right hours of the day. There were fates besides writing, and they needed letters. "You think too much," Serena said, and pressed her thumb hard into the knot at the base of his skull until a different sort of light scattered across his eyes. "Come, they have set the wards singing high today. You like that?" He did. He confessed it easily. On certain days, the earth-binding songs rose through the stone and the floors thrummed, a very old humming that made his teeth ache in a way not unpleasant. He could not hear the words of the binding spells except the way the body hears a river without catching each syllable of the water's speech. He was not one of the earthbinders. He only knew they gathered in the vaulted chambers beneath the black towers and spilled their blood according to careful tables and sang until the 14 flames lay down at their feet like housebound hounds. A man did not need to know a craft's bones to hear the beauty of its sinews moving. They went out to the balcony. Serena's dragon had left 3 long scratches in the stone years ago in a boyish tantrum. The marks ran like laughter toward the parapet. The wind touched Marin's hair and cooled the sweat behind his ears and in the hollows of his knees. It smelled of the sea and of ash. "Do you remember old Master Kez?" Serena asked, shading her eyes with her hand. In the far azure he could see a shape. Perhaps her dragon again, perhaps another, the way one might see while walking a street a beloved sleeve and be mistaken. "He taught me the numbers of the vault," Marin said. "He taught me the names of each valve on a harness plate," Serena said. "He had a way of spitting when he spoke that got between the syllables. He sounded like a songbird caught in a goat's throat. He said something once, when I complained that I had not ridden the ocean winds yet. He said, 'Child, the freehold is a kite made of glass. So long as we are clever with the string, it rides the drafts. Do not confuse that for the wind loving us. The freehold does not require the wind's love,' Marin said lightly. 'Only its obedience.'" Serena said, and leaned her elbows on the parapet and looked along the line of the city where the black tower's tips made a chorus. "A kite does not beg the wind. It follows or it breaks." Below, in a courtyard where water had been made to jump between bowls for no reason except to prove that it could, a child struck another child and then looked up to see whether any eyes saw and laughed because what use is a cruelty that no one witnesses. Marin exhaled through his nose. The binding songs rubbed the soles of his feet. He had the odd sense of walking on a drum. "Volantis sent a petition," he said. "Again. They find their share of ships insufficient to their hunger." "Volantis has a mouth too wide for its face," Serena said. "Give them a dragon to suck their thumb." Marin smiled. He thought of Volantis's bridges and how the river carried boats heavy with slaves beneath arches carved with proud old beasts from Guise and Cohor and 100 cities. He thought of the men who stood on the bridges and spat on their own reflections. He thought of the noise coins make when counted in rooms with no windows. "You are cruel in small things," he said without condemnation. "I am a dragon rider," Serena answered easily, as if that bore all the explanation needed, and perhaps it did. She reached to touch his arm. "You worry about ships. I will not begrudge you that. But do not let the glass kite catch the sun so brightly that you forget the string cuts the hands of the one holding it. Does that make your letters merry better?" "No," he said. "But it keeps me happy that I am not the one holding the string." She laughed and kissed his cheek and clattered away, careless with her boots on the stone because she liked to mark where she had been. Marin stood and let the binder's humming soak into his bones, and in the space between one breath and the next, heard an answer to it. Not from the flames, no. A counter-hum almost too soft to catch, as if someone in a crowd were singing a note under his breath that belonged to a different song and did not want to draw attention to itself. "It is nothing," he told himself. "The stones have odd throats in certain weather. The sea says one thing to them on a north wind and another on a south." He returned to his table. A stain had crept into the corner of his sheet where the ink had pooled. The letters there blurred and looked like a city seen through smoke. In a city that did not exist on any map except in certain men's heads and certain gods' reflections. The fog hung like torn cloth from the inward edges of the world. The titan of that city's gate stood with his mouth full of throat song and his eyes alight. but ships sometimes passed beneath him without sound because the fog asked them to be quiet. The city had no name for anyone who had not been told it. Those who had been told it did not say it to those who had not. The house at the end of the street had a door of wood old enough to be patient. Inside, water slept in a black bowl and caught on its skin the small prisms made by light through the high slits. The faces on the walls had never been faces. They were masks, but if a man was tired he might look up and see his mother or his enemy, because the space between is a treacherous thing and will do tricks when you do not watch it closely. The man who had called himself the Gift knelt on the stone and kissed it, because there are places where a man kisses the floor and does not feel he has put his mouth to dirt. A thin old man with gentle hands, not truly old, but with a way of bending at the joints that made age seem like a choice already made, sat and watched. "You did not wait long," the old one said. "I do not like to keep a god waiting once he has made his face known to me," the Gift said. "You speak as if you chose him," the old one said. His eyes made a smile that his mouth did not. "It is a sweet arrogance. I like it in boys. It keeps them from thinking the god chose them for their suffering. See, tell me what you saw." The Gift took a place at the old man's feet, the way a child sits beneath a tree that had stood before he was born. He told of the tunnels and the water that scratched down the walls, and of Grimos, and how his chest rose then fell and did not rise again, and of the way Khaja had held him and spoken afterwards about the shapes of burdens. He told of the knot and of the listening he had done with his hand to the stone, because he had learned as a boy that sometimes the earth answers a question a mouth cannot speak rightly. "Good," the old man said. "You watched the right things, which is to say you watched the people. What of the 14? They are quieter," the Gift said. "Not less active. Quieter as a man is when he hears someone in the room next to him and does not know if it is a lover or a thief." The old man's fingers made a thoughtful little dance, tapping a rhythm on the edge of the bench. "We have learned the geometry of the binding," he said. "Their songs do not make the mountains sleep. They teach the mountains a habit. Habits can be broken with a shock. Habits can be brushed aside if a stronger habit is taught. Or," he paused, "we can ask the god to place his hand near their mouths and take their breath so that they may forget to sing." "You speak as if you plan to kill the singers," the Gift said. "I plan nothing," the old one said mildly. "I listen and I look at the scales of the world, and I see that in one of the plates sit men with names you know who keep other men who have no names in the heat and take their work and sit in cool rooms to count their own counting of it. And in another plate sits a fire with no mouth to ask that it be fed less. And I see another scale behind those. On one side children with blue nails, and on the other a beast with great wings that does not know any word for greed except hunger. You are a clever boy, you know this already. I am only saying it so the room hears it, and the god cannot say he was not told our intention." The Gift met the old man's eyes. Their mildness did not distract him from the fact that the old one had brought many men what Grimos had been given today, had likely once given it with his own hands before his hands had become too dear to the work of listening. "You tell me to bear a weight," the Gift said. "If we loose the knot's breath, the world will cough. There will be ash in that cough. It will fall on men who deserve to breathe and on men who deserve to choke. Perhaps more of the first than the second. Is the god satisfied if we say we did not count the bodies? The god counts very well." The old man folded his hands and let them be hands, without meanings hung on them like tools. "The god is many," he said quietly. "Some of his faces are blind. Some are not. All men must die. Some are offered. Some are taken. Some are gathered up in the sweepings when a careful man has finished his meal. Which are you prepared to be, boy? Which are you prepared to make others?" The Gift's mouth went dry as if he had spent a day in the shafts. He thought of Khaja's eyes. He thought of the way the mountain had given a small nod when Grimos's breath had left him, as if to say, "I caught him. I will carry him now." "What do you want of me?" he asked. The old man's eyes softened. "I want you to carry a story," he said. "You have a good back and you know how to breathe in heat. There are 12 keys to the knot, if the numbers we have measured are honest. Some say 14, but those are men who would prefer to outrun their work, and so they set themselves more than they can lift, and then they may turn and say their arms were too weak. 12. One is under Valyria itself, where proteins of stone are taught to harden and soften with a hum. One is in Kohor, where men have learned to speak to iron in a tongue that makes it obedient. One is in Lys, not in a stone but in a woman who can make a man believe any door opens to him. And on as such, will you go and knock in the right places, not because you are sure but because you know the shape of need? I will, the gift said. The word fell thin in the great room and the sound of water taking itself nowhere. The old man nodded. And when you doubt, he said, find the faces in the wall. If you see a man you loved, or a man you hated, ask him to argue with you until the light dies. If you see a stranger, listen twice. If you see your own face, go into the street and buy food for a child and wait until the fog has taken your vanity from you. Then work. In the tunnels, Khaja learned how to pretend to be more tired than she was so that eyes slipped past her. The gift taught her without appearing to teach. He did not touch her except to take a tool from her hands and set it down and show her that you could lay a thing on a stone so quietly that even the stone did not feel the weight. He taught her to count breaths and to listen to the mountain the way men listen to horses. 2 days after Grimos, an overseer shoved a boy to the wall because the boy had spilled a bowl of grain. The wall had a trick of belly in that place where it looked flat. The boy struck it, and the breath broken inside him did not know the path out again. Khaja moved as the gift taught her, not to end the boy's pain. He recovered and wept and took the next bowl carefully, but to watch how the wall took the boy's force and gave it back wrong. She could not have said what knowledge she gathered, only that it settled in her flesh and made a map she could read later when there were no lights. At night, those nights when sleep pulled at her but did not catch her, she lay and imagined the world above as a slate and a chalk. If you pressed hard here, a line appeared there. If you rubbed here with spit, a curve could be softened so it looked like a different shape. A knot might be like that. The gift did not talk often about the god, which made Khaja trust him more. He talked about habits and how sometimes the only way to make a body stop a habit is to change the room it is in. If the room is on fire, he said once, also very carefully, the body will forget to smoke. In the house with the black bowl, the old man sent others as quietly as letters slipped under a door. Some were men with the bodies of fishermen and the eyes of those who have seen the underside of the sea. Some were women with hands that had learned to cut meat and not mind the blood. Some were neither or both, for the god did not care overmuch about the shape of the hand so long as the gift was given cleanly. They went to Mir with its lacework of ardent glass. They went to Tyrosh where the dyes stained everything an ache of color that lasted on the fingernails for days. They went to Kohor with its trees that remembered being worshipped. In each place they looked not for kings or for loud men, but for the quiet machines of the world. The way a woman in a dye house walked 3 steps between vats and not 2. The way a bell sounded in a forge and then sounded again too soon and shorter the second time. When they found a note that did not match, they hummed to it a little and sometimes the note bent. Marin read about all these places in the Freehold's books. He did not leave Valyria, except in the fierce, harmless way of letters. He could tell you the width of the river that cut Volantis. He could tell you what shape of stone the mermen used to hold up their waterworks and what words they spoke over their bolts of cloth as they folded them to keep moths shy. He could not tell you the face of a man in any of these places. The faces he knew were here and belonged to people he had eaten with and argued with, and the rest were tables. He went to sit with the Earthbinders when they let him, which was not often. They permitted observers the way a fox permits a bird to land on its head, as a curiosity. He sat where men had sung until their throats bled and kept singing and carried their voices on their hands because some songs are not meant for mouths. He watched bloodline bowls whose rims had been polished by years of shoulders and sleeve friction. He listened and tried to hear, in the thick unified hum, the counternote he had imagined on the balcony that afternoon. He did not hear it again. He thought perhaps he had invented it, in the way one invents monsters when a light is poor. He told himself this firmly, because a man who spends his hours among numbers knows that fancies breed errors like rot. Serena came to him one evening with her hair smelling of soot and wind. "They have moved the clutch," she said, and he saw her mouth softening the way it did when she remembered the feel of a hatchling's ribcage under her hand. the tiny resistant flutter, the mind not yet filled with heat. "Why?" he asked, and did not add, "Who told them to?" because the riders and the binders spoke in a braid. Who told was less important than the hand that had fed this morning and the one that would feed tonight. "They say the eastern vent is speaking angrily," Serena said without concern. "They say it lies to men and sometimes eats them. I told them that is what men do to men, not stones to men. They laughed and said I had a rider's mouth. We are to fly the werelings higher over the sea, so they do not learn bad wind." He could see her then a year from now with a young dragon under her like a pulse across her thighs and the sea below wearing the light like armor. He could see nothing else. It was one of his weaknesses as a lettered man. Some Tim. Yes, the image came and filled the whole page. "Will you be careful?" he asked softly, hating himself for saying what a child might say to a woman who had burned and not wept much. "I will be the wind and let the wind be me," Serena said, with the old rider's smugness, and then reached and pressed her brow to his. "Your letters make you say soft things. I do not hate them for it. What do the Earthbinders sing this week?" "They sing that they are clever and the mountains agree," Marin said. "They sing that a leash is not a leash if you call it a ribbon. They sing that the freehold is a kite made of glass and the string is silk." He paused. "They sing well," he admitted, and Serena's laugh was the pop of fat in a pan. Pleasure and danger at once. The gift stood on a dock in Liss with the taste of sugared wine on his teeth and watched a woman in a yellow sash close her eyes as a groom slipped a strap under the chin of a man who could speak 10 languages and had been made a dumb beast by a ribbon tied correctly. The woman's mouth moved in a small prayer. The gift knew the God to whom she prayed. He watched and saw how the air in the room went still when she breathed out and the groom pulled at the strap and the man's eyes went liquid not with tears but with absence. He learned the song of that breath like any other. In Qohor he met a smith who fed his forge with a mixture that did not smoke. In Mir he stood in a tower where glass flowed like taffy across a frame and hardening made it an obedient light. In Tyrosh he learned that a certain blue would not hold on a fabric as it did on a wall unless the fabric had first been bathed in the urine of a mare fed on particular greens. None of this was romantic. All of it were small notes in an arrangement. When he went home to the house with the black bowl, he stood before the water the way a man stands before a mirror after a long sea voyage, half fearing that someone else will look out and ask his name. Kaja's map of the tunnel changed. She began to go where no one watched to be unseen. She left tools where she knew no hand would grope and find them and harm would not come. She took other tools and moved them a single inch and watched how men took a different stance and so a different pace, and then the work wore a new groove in the floor. These are cruel things if a man sets them so and watches and taps his fingers in time to suffering. And the gift saw that she wondered whether she was the singer or the overseer. The difference is only partly in the counting. It is mostly in what a person desires to see at the end. He told her this when she asked. She nodded and did not say the words he could read in her mouth. The God of many faces does not tell a body what to desire. The body learns that as it learns to breathe. The first of the keys turned in a place no one would ever see. In the cave below the city with its black towers, a binder coughed blood into a bowl, and the blood took a skin as quickly as milk heated. A bowl beside it took blood and did not skin. The man who watched frowned and made notes and changed nothing, because habits are hard to see when you have made a room to hold them all your life. The second key turned in a house where a woman in a yellow sash prayed a small prayer and breathed a small breath and did not know why the groom's hands shook when he pulled the ribbon under the man's chin, and the ribbon did not make a beast but only made a man who blinked and said in a rough voice, "I am thirsty," which was an unremarkable thing for a man to say and so remarkable that the groom wept. The woman in the yellow sash had a husband in the counting houses of the freehold, and she told him nothing because she did not have a shape to put this thing in yet, and until she had a shape she would drop it if she tried to carry it. But at night her mouth did not form its prayer, and the air in the room kept moving. The third turned when a Myrish artisan lifted his hand from a frame and watched the glass cool and saw a line quiver that should not, and tilted his head like a dog. He did nothing, but he did less than he might have to fix it, and his laziness made a tiny, invisible run through a plate that would be placed in a window in a tower in a room where a song would later attempt to settle and would find itself slipping. The gift returned to the tunnels because he wanted to see the story at its beginning, and because Kaja's presence steadied him in a way he mistrusted in himself and so valued. A man should distrust his comforts and yet take them where offered in moderation like salt. The god will take millions, Kaja said one night, examining the back of her hand where the ash had made a soft, pale shape like a cloud. Not all of them men I dislike. She spoke as if to an empty room and then looked up at him with the frankness of someone who had run out of lies to tell herself. I think I am a good person, she said. I think I am not a good person. Which is it? You are a person, the gift said. The god does not care. The god accepts. We care. That is what makes the work careful. You speak as if you do not know whether your work is careful, she said. She almost smiled. That is why I allow you to stand in front of me and talk as if I owe you something. If you knew you were careful, I would throw you in the black water and let the mountain drink you and spit the bones. He inclined his head. I owe you, the gesture said, which is a thing worth more than any coin in any city, even the cities that pretend not to value coin. Marin put his hand to a glass candle in a study. He had borrowed from a cousin who had gone south for some months to deal with a villa with a bad drainage and a worse steward. The candle had been brought from Ashai, which men with money and no particular sense brought from that far city as if distance itself conferred meaning. He had never seen it light except with fire. They said there were spells, but he had letters and numbers, and those told him that such a thing would require an arrangement in the air that the air did not often agree to keep. He set his fingertips to the green-veined surface and closed his eyes. He did not know why he did this. The room was quiet. The house was empty except for him and 3 servants, and 2 of those were sleeping and 1 minded the door for the sake of form. The candle was cool. He did not expect heat. He expected nothing, and therefore something had room to happen. A thread of cold touched his nail, as if he had dipped his hands in a river in winter and then wrapped them in fur. He breathed in and smelled, unmistakably, the sea in a fog. He thought he heard feet on stone. He opened his eyes and saw a room not his. A high slit of window, faces that were masks but could be faces if he looked long enough. A black bowl of water that reflected nothing of the room and everything of the man who looked into it, which was to say it showed him a figure standing there and did not tell him which man's eyes reflected there. He jerked his hand back so quickly that he knocked the candle over and it rolled and gave a sound like a bell heard down a long pipe. He put it upright with a breath he did not know he had been holding and laughed once at his own jump. And the laugh sounded to his ears like a note sung too loudly in a song meant to be a whisper. He walked to the balcony and stood and watched the city draw its lights up out of bowls. He thought of Serena asleep with one arm over her face because she had always slept like that, as if the night were a bright thing she must shade her eyes against. He thought of earth-binding songs and the counterhum he had imagined. He thought of a room he had not seen and told himself he had seen it because he had been reading a story about a house in a place where men told stories about such things in order to feel the thrill of proximity to danger without stepping into it. In the tunnels, Kaja watched a thin line of water begin to run where water had not run before. It was a bad sign or a good one depending on whether you were the stone or the men. The gift put his hand to the wall and closed his eyes, and the mountain's purr grew, then settled. He took a breath and would have sworn the wall breathed with him. He did not say this aloud. There are lines a man does not cross if he wishes to remain useful. Saying them to a god is like asking a mirror to teach you your face. The old man in the house with the black bowl placed a small, polished iron key on the lip of the water and watched it slowly turn until it pointed in a direction no man could walk. "We do not have to be sure," he said to the room, which did not answer. "We have to be obedient to the shape of suffering we have seen and the mercy that is offered to us to carry. The rest is vanity." In Lys, the woman with the yellow sash folded it into a drawer and did not take it out for a week, though she did not know why she had done so. In Qohor, a forge's fire went low for half a day and then resumed with a breath that sounded like a man who has been drowning and finally puts his feet on a stone. In Mir, a master glazier threw out a plate of glass and cursed because the flaw in it was invisible and therefore he distrusted it and would not set it in a rich man's window. And so that window was not cut by that particular invisible run when a certain draft made a certain sound. These were small things and would not have told a pattern to any man who did not bring the pattern to them like a stencil to lay over the world. But the God listens in many places and carries weights men do not see until the floor cracks. Serena flew. She did not think words when she did. The world narrowed to wind and the rip of leather across her inner arm, and the smell of hot scale animal, and the small complicities between her body and the body of the thing beneath her. She did not believe in gods particularly. She believed in the line between a mouth and a bit and the pleasure of that line when the body below agreed to the pressure and the turn. She did not think she was cruel. She thought she was honest, which is a cruelty with better manners. She took the werelings over the sea. She pointed them with her knees. She felt a prickling along her forearms when she turned them in a certain arc, and later when she told the stable master, he nodded and said, "A change in the vent." As one says, the tap leaks. He sent a boy to ask at the binder's house whether the songs should be altered a notch to the left, as one says, "Move that bowl to the other shelf. It will keep better there." The binders made a mark in a book and adjusted the note. They did not feel the first small tremor of a knot deciding it had been tied long enough. The gift sat with Kaja and told her he would go away for some months. He did not say where. She did not ask. They both pretended not to notice that their talk had become the kind of talk that makes the space between two bodies gentler. He touched her wrist with 2 fingers the way one tests whether a child has a fever, and then withdrew them. "When you drop a cobble in a pond," he said, "the first rings are large and loud. Later the ripples travel further and are very small, but they touch more shore. Listen for the small rings. Do not look for us in the large ones. We will be in the small." "I am in the place where the cobble falls," Kaja said, and he nodded as if acknowledging a rank. "It is a hard place," he said, and she looked at him with a levelness that made him want to laugh and weep at once, because it said, "I have always lived there, and you say it is hard, like a man who has visited once in winter and returned to a country with gardens." Marin went to a dinner where men spoke about walls as if they were women. He sat and listened and made an occasional dry remark that made a dry man smile and feel he had been kind. He drank a glass of a pale wine that had Ived in stone and new secrets about the fruit that made it. He watched a senator from an old house fold and unfold his hands as he spoke about redistributing the labor that was mailed in from Tyrosh because there had been a plague there and the price had risen. He watched the man re-sleeve his greed into a talk of efficiency and numbers, which was a thing Marin had seen since he was a boy. He thought, "We are clever. We are so clever the glass we hold is jealous of us." On his way home, he passed a shrine of a small god whose eyes had been worn smooth by the thumbs of those who asked favors. He had passed it his whole life. He had never touched the eyes. He touched them then because his hand wanted to set itself somewhere solid. The stone was cool, and then it was warm, and then it was only stone again. He felt foolish and closed his hand and walked on, and did not hear the counterhum he had heard once, and did not know whether it had gone or only grown too quiet for the place he had taught his ears to live. In the house with the black bowl, the old man walked at night through rooms where men had come and laid down the names they had carried too long. He put his hand to the wall and listened. In the distance, a singing rose and fell. In another distance, a woman folded a sash and wept without knowing the name of the thing she mourned. In another distance, a dragon flung its head and tasted the air and found an absence there, slight as a strand of hair out of place, and growled. He nodded. "Soon," he said, not to hasten anything, that would be vanity, but because the god sometimes likes to be told that his servants also mark the time with him and do not pretend they are more patient than they are. Kaja woke to the mountain speaking in a voice she had not heard. It was not the long purr. It was not the stutter of small change. It was like a deep laugh, not in mockery but because a body had decided there was nothing for it now but to go where the sound took it. She sat up and the others around her slept because bodies are cruel to themselves that way and will choose sleep when a wall groans. She walked the corridor to the chamber where Grimos had died. A trickle of water ran there now and made a soft sound like a child trying not to cry. She stood and listened to it. She put her hand on the wall in the place where the belly hid and she felt, for the first time, a motion under the motion, the way a horse breathes differently the moment before it decides to bolt. She stood a long time until the sound became part of her and she could carry it and sleep with it without it waking her. Marin dreamt he was underwater and could not tell whether it was river or sea or glass. He woke with his mouth open and his throat dry, and he went to the balcony, and the city lay quiet as a great cat with its eyes half-lidded. He thought of the kite of glass and the string. He thought of the old master who had known the string cut. When the first ash fell weeks later, it fell soft as milk. It dusted bowls and the backs of children's necks and the glossy scales of a dragon who sneezed, to the delight of a boy who had never seen a dragon sneeze. No one said the word doom. Doom is a word men say after, when they have to call something by a name because the thing has put on its new face and will not take it off again. The ash was just ash. They had lived their whole lives by volcanoes with pretty names and rude tempers. They knocked it from their hair and told it to behave. In the house with the black bowl, the old man sat with his feet bare and the water nearly at his toes. The iron key lay on the lip again and turned of its own appetite to point toward a place no one could walk, and then turned a hairbreadth further. He did not smile. He did not weep. He said only, very quietly, Vala Morgulis. And the room did not answer because the room had been made for men to speak to gods, not for gods to speak to men. That is, after all, what mercy is, a gift given without a voice attached. The gift returned to the tunnels in a shirt of a sort men wear when they wish to be no one's business. He found Kaja with ash in her hair and a new groove beside her mouth that had not been there before. He put his hand to the wall and breathed. She put her hand beside his and breathed, and the mountain breathed with them because it had been breathing before, only now it did not mind that they listened. "How many?" she asked. "Enough to count," he said. "Enough to be counted by someone else." "You lie well when you think you are sparing me," she said. "I lie badly when I think it," he said, and this made her laugh. He told her nothing that was not hers to carry. She did not ask another question. The ash fell softly and made the rocks sweat look like tears. Marin studied the numbers of the binders and found that one column was off by a unit of breath, an integer only letters could see. He took the book to the man who led them and tapped the page with one finger. "Here," he said, "a miscopy." "No," the binder said. "A correction. The vent altered. We altered in answer." "In the past tense?" Marin asked mildly. "Before you sang?" The binder did not answer, which was an answer. Marin imagined, briefly, what the god of his childhood house would say if a boy told him he would alter a prayer after he had said it. He thought the god would smile and be pleased the boy had ambition. He wondered whether the mountain had the same patience with boys. Serena came to him with ash on her shoulders and kissed his brow. "It is beautiful," she said, and he laughed and said, "You would say that if the world burned, you would admire the color of it." "If the world burned," she said, "it would be because we had sung so beautifully that the stones remembered they could move." He put his hand to the glass candle in the afternoon light and felt nothing. He looked into the pale stone and saw his own face and did not like it. He went to the shrine and touched the eyes and did not feel anything there either. He went home and sat, and in the quiet he thought he heard a very soft note, as if someone in the next room had begun to hum to himself in uncertainty. He stood and the note stopped. He sat and it did not begin again. He told himself he had imagined it. He told himself his hands had begun to shake with the habit of inventing the long strings that connect things to other things, which is the necessary vice of those who make tables. The ash fell. The habit of it soothed those who had never been soothed by ash. In the tunnels, Kaja kept her map in her head and listened for the second breath beneath the first. The gift moved along the veins of the world and set fingers in places where a habit seam had been worn. The old man in the house with the black bowl slept with his feet bare and the water near and dreamed no dreams he would tell. Serena flew. Marin read. The world hummed like a throat preparing to sing a known song and learning a new one at the same time. In that held note lay the promise of mercy and the certainty of ruin. When the ash stopped for 3 days and the sky turned the too clean blue of a blade, every man and woman who had listened closely to anything, faces, water, stone, breath, stopped what they were doing without knowing why and held themselves still an instant, as one holds still when a bird settles on the back of the chair near their hand and they wish to see what it will do. The bird considered its small feet. The chair breathed the way wood does after a long heat. The air took a breath and held it. Kaja put her palm on the wall and felt nothing and everything. The gift turned his face toward a wind that carried no grit and counted the seconds between one thing and the next. Serena stroked a hatchling's jaw and felt it tremble as if a string buried deep in its meat had been plucked, and frowned and hummed a note under her breath to calm it. Marin put his fingers lightly to the glass candle and closed his eyes and saw in the black water of a room. He had never entered the reflection of a hand that could have been his and could have been anyone's, hovering over the surface as if deciding whether to touch. The old man watched the iron key and did not blink as it turned another hairbreadth and pointed at last exactly where it had always meant to point, which is to say toward a place no road leads, and said very softly, "It is time to carry." The note trembled. The habit of the world, carefully taught, paused and considered its choices. The men and women who had spent years teaching the world how to wrest their way would say later they had been betrayed by stone. The men and women who had been made to carry the weight of that teaching would say later the god had listened. The dragon in Serena's shadows lifted its head and tasted heat, and a dragon on another tower 3 streets over did the same, and a dragon 2 islands away, and a dragon chained to a barge in Volantis so its dread might sell dearer, and in Kohor a tree shivered in its heartwood, and in Mir a plate of glass sang a hairline song and cracked along a flaw invisible and perfect. The bird on the chair lifted one foot and set it down again as if to make a promise. Then the world took its breath, and held, and held, and in the mountain, something that had pretended to sleep remembered it did not know how.